Welcome to Mindset Monday, a time to reset your mindset. My name is Dr. Ifeanyi Lele, and this is my beautiful wife, Dr. Chichi. Our channel touches on how a psychiatrist and a pharmacist balance work, life, and family as it relates to mental health and wellness.
Thank you for joining us today. We will be talking about long distance relationships. This is part one of two series. The first part that we will discuss today touches on our long distance journey, starting from when we met, literally a month before he graduated from school, and goes into us being engaged and being in a long distance relationship, and then going into marriage and continuing the long distance, and then finally into having two children and adjusting to still being long distance. And then finally, when he moved back to join us, how we are now able to, as a family, coexist and raise our children together. So I thank you for joining us and listening to our journey. When we met, we didn't know anything about each other, and literally he was getting ready to graduate and go on to Philadelphia for medical school. And I was like so against long distance. I'd never been in one. I'd heard horrible stories about long distance relationships, and I was like, nah, that's not gonna be me. And so I said to him, like, yeah, so we might as well just go ahead and end this right now, because I don't do long distance, and we're not gonna do it. And so then he said to me, Chichi, I don't know what you're talking about. We're Nigerians. This is what we do. We do long distance. So we're gonna continue this long distance relationship. And I was like, who is this guy? Like, it's just been a month and you're telling me that we're gonna continue this long distance. Like, thoughts were going through my mind, like, how do I know this is gonna work? Am I wasting my time with this person in the hopes that it's gonna work out? What if I give this person my good years and it doesn't work out? Then all of this would have been for naught, and there could have been somebody that was in the same vicinity as me. Like, so I just didn't have that confidence, and I'm curious, like, how did you, first of all, did you even think that it was gonna work out? And then, or what made you even want us to embark on this long distance journey?
I had confidence it would work out, but
how?
I knew because I think we just vibed well together. I was like, when I met you, I was like, we just hit it off immediately. Like the first time we talked, it was for about 8 hours.
Yeah, I know. We talked for
And
8
so
hours,
I knew,
6 p.m.
Yeah.
to 8 a.m. in the morning. Like, I should have been sleeping so I could wake up to go to class, but I was on the phone.
And I knew that I liked her a lot because I was a big 24 fan, and so I would bump my show 24 just to talk to her. So that's where I knew that there was something going there.
So I just had to add this. So let me just add this. Okay, so yes, he loved the show 24, and when we first started talking, literally as the show was about to start, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I gotta go because my show is about to start," and I'm like, really? Like, you're gonna get off the phone with me to go watch 24?
Yeah, Jack Bauer. Yeah,
okay,
come on.
But then there would be times I would purposely call around 24, and then he would continue to be on the phone, and I was like, I'm in there, because he didn't get off the phone. So that was how I knew that. Okay, we're making headway. But okay, go ahead.
But for me, this relationship, and when it first began, I enjoyed our conversations. I liked the way her sense of humor, and so that what drew me to her. And when she wanted to end it, when knowing that I was going to move to Philadelphia, I was like, let's give this a shot. And I was thinking, in my mind, let's just do this month by month and see how.
Month by month?
Yeah.
Really? So you weren't committed? It was a month by month thing?
My thing was more like.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hear it today for the first time. I did not know this. Okay, go on.
I like setting short-term goals, and so that's what helped me out. And so I hit my benchmarks. I was like, all right, we're gonna hit a year. When we hit a year, I was like, wow, we did a year. And so for me, I try to lower expectations of our relationship, so that way I didn't get hurt. I was kind of like protecting myself.
Okay, so, well, it's a lot of new information today, but nonetheless, we tried to make it work by, well, being that he was starting medical school, and I was wrapping up pharmacy school, I would be the one driving to Philly a lot more than him coming to Hampton. And then sometimes we would take the Amtrak. And it was interesting because, you know, I would have like friends or people who knew about us being in a long distance relationship say to me, like, you know, how do you know that while he's there and he's supposed to be studying that he's not like seeing somebody else?
What?
Or yes.
What?
And so,
Wow.
because the reality is it's a gamble, it's a risk, you
Mm-hmm.
know, you're just meeting someone, you know, at this point it's probably like 3 months in. So it's a lot of faith and there has to be trust, you know, and sometimes you could get kind of distracted based on a lot of noise that you're hearing, like,
Yeah.
you know, and so trust was something that we literally had to hold on to and hang on to
But-
at the beginning.
And for me, this is what helped me create trust with you, was I made sure that when I met all my friends in Philadelphia, I introduced her immediately during her first visit. I always talked about her, so she was a part of their lives, but also knowing that there's somebody there, because a lot of times in long distance relationships, trust is a big issue. And when you're not talking about your significant other to everybody else, you're just like a myth or a ghost. But when you're actually talking about them, it makes it like, wow, this is a real life person. I can't wait to meet her. And once you were able to, I incorporated you into my friend circle, they loved you, you loved them back, and it was made it easier for her to be away. And she was always interested in coming back, and vice versa. When I went to Hampton to visit her, I knew all of her friends, and it made it easy for me to look forward to going there, because although I'm just going to see her, but I was also seeing her friends. And then vice versa, when she came back, when you come to Philly, we always had a planned activity, and we had post-exam parties, we had dinners with my friends. So she was part of our lives.
And I truly appreciated that, just because, you know, it's something that I didn't ask for, but I appreciated that effort that he made in wanting to include me in his life so that I wouldn't have any reason to doubt his sincerity and commitment. But I must admit that, you know, it wasn't easy, because each time that I was going to see him, and I can't speak for him, but for myself, you know, I would always want to make sure, like, okay, that I looked right. I wanted to make sure that, you know, we wouldn't get into like any arguments, or that, you know, we would use our time wisely, just because, you know, we're only literally seeing each other for just such a short time. And so once, you know, we continued on with our relationship, and then it went into like talk of like engagement and things like that. I mean, I couldn't imagine that we dated for 3 years before we got engaged, and we were engaged for 2 years. And so now we're a total of 5 years at this point, and still long distance. And I couldn't imagine that now into engagement that we would still, you know, be long distance. And I found myself questioning, like, oh my goodness, is this gonna be like forever? Like, is this?
But what kept you going though at that point?
I mean, honestly, I knew you, I knew your heart. And to me, I felt like God was integral in our relationship, that we were gonna make it work. Like, we were scheduling visits, because at this point, I was in Arizona. I had graduated pharmacy school. I was in Arizona, and you were in Philadelphia finishing up your studies. And so now we're not talking about driving anymore, and we're not talking about Amtrak trains. We're now talking about flights from the West Coast to the East Coast. We're talking time zone differences, things like that. But at that point, we were committed. I knew your heart, and I knew that this was someone that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, and I wanted to be the father of my kids. So I was like, all right, you know, we're just gonna find a way to make it work.
And for me, what helped me out was I had to make sure I didn't take for granted her being my girlfriend and fiance, because there are a lot of people that don't have those opportunities to find somebody and vibe with and fall in love. So for me, it was very important to honor our relationship, make sure I'm committed to her, and that make sure she knows that I'm not going behind her back and seeing other women, but I was all in for her. And so that's what made special. Every time I saw her, I make sure that during the 2 days that we were with each other, that it was full commitment. And also things to spice up the relationship. I brought somebody to play the violin for her one time. I would have trips around Philadelphia planned. So we had a lot of good scheduled activities. We shared great Philadelphia restaurants.
But let me say this. There is something he did that just really, it bothered me. And I was just like, really? So during my spring break, I went, during my spring break,
Okay.
I went.
All right, go on.
During my spring break, I went to Philly and I spent my spring break with him. And so this was like, because at that point I'm like thinking of times that we're going to spend with each other. And then when his spring break came, he tells me he's going to Miami with his friends. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, who does that? And I think that was probably like our biggest argument that we had at that time, because I'm like, okay, so, and I started questioning, like, am I the only person committed in this relationship? Like, I spent my spring break hanging out in Philly watching you study, and you're using your spring break to go hang out in Miami. Like, are you serious? But I'm over it now. We move on. Go on.
I'm glad you're over it now. But those are things that you can have happen in long distance relationships, where you cannot take your significant other for granted, because sometimes you're like, during that period, I was like, I just need to decompress from stress from studying and exams. But sometimes you may make mistakes with that, where you're like, you pick something over your significant other, and you have to deal with those consequences. And that sometimes could break relationships, because you're dealing with somebody where you're not seeing them all the time, and I just can't drive around the corner and see her and she's all right, go to Miami. But I made that decision, but we were able to bounce back, talk about it, and see how it affected her and how I could learn from that situation. And from that on, I don't make that mistake again.
And as we talked about taking that next step into marriage, some of the things that I would hear would be like, oh, if you guys have never lived together, how do you know that if you get married, you guys will be able to live in the same household? And how do you think that, just because we had never actually lived in the same home or around each other for an extended period of time. But honestly, I just kept saying I know his heart and I know him very well. And I did not expect any less. I know there were going to be challenges. I know there were going to be growing pains. But at the end of the day, I would take all of this over, anybody else. So it's going to come. There's going to be doubts. But if you have that trust with each other, and also communication, we talked a lot on the phone. We didn't do Skype videos. We didn't do WhatsApp videos. It was literally phone conversations and seeing each other in person, sometimes once a month, sometimes. I think the longest we went without seeing each other was
probably 2 months or something.
3 months. And then you can also kind of tell when it was time for a visit, because then we start arguing over silly stuff. Then it's all right, let's book a ticket, get online, start looking for a good price, a good deal. But yeah, and we definitely hung onto our faith. We talked to each other if anything was bothering us.
We would send care packets.
Yeah, we did. So
I think that's good too for long distance relationships.
Yeah,
sending a care packet to your loved ones so they can know that you're thinking about them. Like if she had an exam coming up or something big, she would have received something, and vice versa. And sending 1, 2, 3 greetings, I think.
Yeah,
e-cards.
E-cards. Yeah, he was good at that. Yeah.
So I would send stuff to there. So I think there's a good small subtle touches that help out long distance relationships.
Yes, and I appreciate you for that. So this ends our first part on our long distance journey. Thank you for listening to us. Hope that there are some things here that if you're in the same boat going through a long distance relationship that you can utilize. To hear more, follow us on our social media channels at GPSMindset. Have a great day. Thank you.